Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today for our third installment of Coffee and Convos. We've got a great group of people here with us today to continue our conversations. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about rest, and we'll see where that conversation goes with all of us. But first, we're going to introduce ourselves and share a little bit about what we are sipping on today. So I'm Courtney, and today I'm drinking watermelon kombucha, and it's
Oh,
very good. And I have
what,
my metal straw.
what is
For
that brand? I'm unfamiliar with that bottle.
Brew Doctor. I
Brew
just
Doctor.
started getting it, and I really like it. I'm
Where
not
do
going
you find Brew Doctor?
my own. I got this at VG's.
Okay.
Shout out to VG's.
I'm trying to think. Is there a VG's near me? There, because there's one in Fenton, right? Right off of Owen Road.
There are two in Fenton now.
There's one in Davison, but hmm. Well, it looks good. Looks very good. Uh,
Very good.
I'm Tyler. I am drinking. It's the afternoon, so no coffee this time. But I am kind of drinking a hybrid. So it's about this much lemon juice, this much ginger kombucha, this much water. So it's my water hydration, but with just a little added excitement for a Tuesday.
We love it.
I'm Abby, and I'm drinking a strawberry banana smoothie.
Fantastic.
Ooh, sounds awesome.
That looks really good.
I'm Hannah, and I have some green tea with a little bit of honey in it.
Wait, is that alpaca on your mug?
It's llamas. It's
Oh,
a bunch of llamas. There's a little llama at the bottom, so when you're done, you just got a little llama surprise.
oh, you're just drinking your way to a llama. I love it.
That's so great.
I'm Vincent, and I'm just drinking regular coffee with coconut creamer. I also have a Beatles mug, so.
Wow.
Ooh.
I didn't see you as a coconut creamer, Vincent, but I like you even more for that. I feel like that
It's
is
like the only,
it's a what?
it's the only type of coffee that I drink. So
Coconut cream creamer. Man, I really like that for you.
Wow. That's
I
really fun.
I'm really fascinated by that in a good way. Uh, I guess fascination can go either way. But I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who's on the call, Abby, Hannah, and Vincent. Appreciate you taking some time. Obviously, with quarantine, we have a lot of time, it seems like. But I know that there's still school going on. And are you all wrapping up finals this week? Like, is this a big week for school this week, next week?
mm,
Are you getting close to finals?
I don't think so.
Not really? Oh, man.
Oh my gosh,
I
all
guess
of their faces just like say,
that was the worst intro ever. I guess I was talking to some seniors, and some of the seniors
Yeah.
or the college students are wrapping up this week, and so maybe that's what I was thinking. But I know even though it feels like we have a lot of time, there's still a lot of things that are kind of pulling your attention and energy from school to things at home. Some of you maybe are working a little bit. But anyway, just wanted to say thanks for being here. We really appreciate your willingness just to be a part of the conversation. And I'm really excited about the topic because I feel like anytime we talk about rest, uh, it just seems to be such a necessary conversation. Even if I just had a conversation about rest, I can have another one, and it just seems just as enlightening and fruitful and helpful to me. So I'm excited for the conversation and the topic. And as we get into it, I guess I just want to get your initial thoughts when you hear the word rest. What images or ideas or thoughts kind of come to mind for you? What are some of the first things you think when you hear the idea of rest?
well, for me, like it's not necessarily like just like laying down or like taking a nap or something. It's more like, for me, it'd be like playing guitar because like Courtney would know what I'm talking about. Like you kind of get this feeling when you're like playing an instrument that just seems like everything, like all your problems just disappear, and you just like that's my form of rest.
yeah. It can be really meditative, like with guitar especially, you're playing these patterns kind of like over and over, or if you've been working on the same thing, it can kind of be a way to quiet down all the outside things and really have that moment. So I definitely get that, Vince. That's cool.
I feel like when I think about it, it normally to me, when I imagine it in my head, I see it more as at night. I feel like I work really hard in the day and then at night it's kind of just my time. Also like with tea, I'm drinking it now, which is off for me because normally I feel like I drink it at night versus in the morning or afternoon just because it has more of a relaxing feeling to me. Um, but I'll read or like paint and for me that's extremely relaxing to like see just like what you can create when you let your mind just kind of go down, I guess.
I love that. Abby, any things that come to mind when you think of rest?
For me, I think of it as like after I do something like important or big, just the time after that, just to relax. And
Kind of a reset for you?
yeah.
How would you describe the notion of rest in terms of how maybe culturally we think of rest? Do you think that rest is something that is encouraged or highly sought after in our culture? Or do you see rest as something that is seen as a little more weak or taboo or lazy? If you've thought of that.
Well, I think it's like good to have rest, and I don't think like we should like judge people on what they're doing. So,
I feel like
because
we
everyone,
have like a kind of like self love like rest thing that we push like take your time and rest kind of thing, but I feel like it's never really actually thought about carefully. It's like, oh, another thing talking about how you should take time to take care of yourself, like because we put it out there so much, but if we don't participate in it ourselves, it doesn't really have any meaning behind it. Plus I feel like we've used it so much that people kind of don't even know what rest is anymore, just for even for them, because I feel like we don't have as much time to rest anymore. Maybe now that we have quarantine we do, but before we're working a lot and it just kind of feels like every day is a kind of go 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 thing. So I feel like it's kind of a thing that's pushed on us but not really taken seriously, I guess.
I guess maybe along those lines, but taking it in a little bit different direction. What would you say your relationship to rest is personally? Are you someone who really values rest and you love taking that time for yourself? Like you said, Hannah, are you someone who really practices that, or is it more difficult for you guys as you kind of look at all the things that you could be doing and maybe even all the things that society tells you you should be doing or the things you have to do? You know, what is your personal relationship to rest? How you view it? Do you like it, or is it hard for you?
I think it's kind of hard to do because especially during the school year, I try to like do as many sports and clubs as I can and try to like not have free time because I feel like I'm not really doing anything. So I try to like everything together. So now it's kind of weird just having so much time to not do anything.
Abby, I want to follow up to that really quick. Can you remember, like, at what age you were when you started filling up your schedule with as many activities as you could do?
Good
I
question.
think I've always been like that, but definitely in middle school when I can like choose to do like as many things as I can. I think it's like always been like a habit just to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like the opposite of that because I always like I've quit like a lot of stuff. Like I've tried like every sport like over my life, and I always end up like quitting it after like a year or two. And at this point, I'm just trying to do as little stuff as possible. But it doesn't mean like I'm not like being like productive or anything because I still like for example, I like play in the youth band and stuff, and I like practice guitar for that stuff.
Vincent, kind of following up on that, would you say that for most people, they view rest through the lens of inactivity? Because you kind of contrasted yourself to the way that Abby approaches, being involved in things. Um, but I also wonder if you sense at all that people assume that rest is, and you kind of touched on this at the beginning. You said, I don't think rest is just like laying down or laying there. Um, but do you think that for a majority of people, they see rest as inactivity?
Yeah, probably.
I feel like that rings true for me as well. That like you said, you're not doing anything, you're not being productive. But maybe to some folks, they would say, oh, why isn't he more involved in things? Is he just wanting to be lazy, or is he just wanting to, to have all this free time? But you've already identified that through intentionality, you've kind of found ways to rest that just look different maybe than conventional ideas of rest, if that makes sense.
I think another form of rest for me, well, at the moment, okay, so normally I don't play Xbox, but we're in quarantine and it's like the only way I can kind of like hang out or whatever with my friends. So I've been doing that a lot lately. And I guess that kind of also be a form of rest because like I barely get to see them, and just like getting on Xbox and like hanging out with them on there, like all my church and school friends.
Do you all feel like you experience a lot of stress and pressure in your lives to accomplish or be productive or achieve certain things? Like, do you sense that you have that kind of pressure? And if so, uh, what does that feel like for you?
It kind of feels like if I'm not doing something or improving in something, it's like I'm not doing anything, and like I'm just like kind of staying still. Um, because like I feel like, especially now that I'm in high school, it's like being pushed to go forward from high school. Like that's what high school's for, is preparing you for your future. And I feel like if you're not working on that 24/7, or if you're not focusing on that, if that's not your main focus, then you're just kind of not really doing anything. You're just, I don't know, like wasting time, I guess.
Yeah, I think I've heard this sentiment from people. When you get into high school, they say, okay, well, now it really starts to count, so you better do well, because now, in middle school it was kind of whatever, but now that you're in high school, those great. And I think people say those things well intentioned, but it really does add a sense of pressure. But also, and you talked about this a little bit, Hannah, is that a lot of people talk about high school as if it's only preparation for what's next. And so I wonder how that also plays to that sense of pressure of feeling like you have to do all of these things well, but at the same time, your life hasn't really started yet. And so it's kind of interesting that you identify that, because I wonder, I know we're getting off rest just a little bit, but I wonder what that does to our minds to think about pressure and stress and accomplishing or being productive or whatever when we hear those messages. So thanks for sharing that.
Well, and I think for you guys, it's even different from when I was in high school, which seems like an eternity ago. But for us, it was like you need to get good grades. And if you like to play a sport and you're good at it, like go for it. But now I feel like I hear students saying, I feel pressure because colleges want to see my extracurriculars and they want me to be in NHS, and I need to be in like community service somehow, even outside of NHS. And I need to play this sport and not just ride the bench, but I need to be the best and excel. And so I think I'm just wondering, what has the past 2 months, maybe has that revealed anything to you about the importance of all of those things? Because I think we get a message that everything is of maximum importance. And I wonder, have you experienced over the past, I don't know, 10 weeks, that maybe some things aren't as important to accomplish as others, or do you still feel that pressure?
I mean, for me, I'm still like trying to go for runs and practice basketball and do all my schoolwork, but it's definitely like just nice to not have to do anything.
The first months of like quarantine or like when everything shut down was really nice. Just like having like no schoolwork to do, and it just felt like school had like disappeared, and there was like no stress or anything from it. But now it's back, so that's fun.
And does it feel like the stakes are just as high as before?
Oh, well, okay, not really, because like I'm gonna be honest, like I procrastinate a lot with my schoolwork now, and it's just like hard to focus. I think it's kind of like the environment, because like I feel like there's no like consequences if I don't do something, because like I kind of wait till like until like the day that or like the day or the day before that everything's due to like actually like finish it or sometimes start working on it. But like a lot of the stuff that they give us is like way less than what they did in school, because like I said, I could just finish it all in like one day or like 1 or 2 days. So I don't think the stakes are as high.
I feel like with the whole like quarantine and rest thing, because we started doing schoolwork again, and one of the things we were doing right as quarantine ended was planning our future career and like doing research on that. So when we finally started doing schoolwork again, it was all like very overwhelming again. Um, and then I kind of like took a step back and I was like, okay, so I need to control this. And then not only that, what I like, so while I was doing this thing, I found that the career that I thought I wanted to do didn't want to do, which kind of just bummed me out a little bit. But I was like, that career is like 70 to 80 hours a week of work. And I was like, that's ridiculous. So I know I need my rest, because mentally you don't do okay. You don't have rest. You need to give yourself a chance to mentally break down. Not break down, but like just separate your feelings. So I was like, okay, let's change. And then after I changed that and everything, and I figured out my new future career, I feel like I stopped stressing about it as much, because I am definitely one that looks towards the future and won't really focus on present. So after I figured out that I have time and not everything is set in stone because I just changed my future career, um, I think it helped me relax a little bit more and rest, because I realized that things can change and they will change, and you just gotta give yourself time to realize that stuff, I guess.
I always
If
love
that
those.
made any sense. That was a lot.
Wow, that was good. I always love those assessments you would take, and they would say, you know, these are the best things for you to do. Because I never, like, I felt, I don't know what I felt. I just always was confused. I remember in high school, the first time I took that test assessment, my top two results for career choices were zoologist and a florist. And I mean, I'm down with animals, and I do love flowers, but I always felt this stress or pressure to, okay, you got to figure everything out now, because, you know, you're in high school now, and you've got to make these decisions, because we're going to start lining up your classes now to, you know, help get you where you want to go. And so I wonder, I know I'm putting you all on the spot a little bit here, but if you reflect back maybe over the last school year, um, going throughout a normal week, what percent of your week would you feel like you felt more stress than you think you should have felt, or more anxiety over schoolwork and being productive and all of it? Like, what percent of your week do you feel like you felt that pressure and that anxiousness in your achievements and in your productivity? I know it's hard to probably say like it's this percentage, but if you had to guess.
I would say like if it's like it's probably gonna be different for freshman year, but like for a sophomore, like 10 or 20%. Like
Was
it'd
it
probably be a lot more for like junior year, but like sophomore year is like really easy. And like I went like 2 months without having homework once. It was really nice. And it's just like sometimes I'll get stressed when when we do like SAT prep or stuff like that, and it reminds me that next year I'm gonna have to take it. But junior year is probably gonna be like the stress level is like way higher. So
I think mine's higher than that, but it's not super high. I just like I scheduled my schedule so it's like I'm in almost all honors classes and I'm taking like all the classes like higher classes and I'm in sports after that. So then I get home and I just do my homework after sports and then just get ready for the next day. It's like the same thing over and over.
I definitely tried to do that. I tried to be an Abby. But I skipped basketball because I was like, okay, freshman year, I gotta figure it out. Didn't help much. Still super stressed and anxiety. Um, I am also in like trying to stay above in my classes. So most of my classes are honors or advanced classes, and then so I feel like overall probably a pretty high like 85% stress level. Like it was almost every day I was coming home and I was freaking out and I was like, I don't have time for all this.
Mm.
And there was definitely a point in the year where it just kind of eventually wore on me a lot. Like there was definitely a 3-month period towards the end of the first semester, beginning of second semester, where I was like, okay, I need to take a break because this is a lot. My stress level was way too high, and I think I finally realized that, which is great that I finally realized it because
Mm-hmm.
Hannah,
I
could
feel
you?
like
Oh, sorry, Vincent. Really
okay.
quick though.
Um,
Go ahead.
are you going? Okay. I feel like the stress could also not come from schoolwork because I feel like a lot of mine came from like just knowing that I have to wake up like 5:30 the next morning and get ready and go to school and stuff like that early in the morning.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, Vincent, I was kind of going to ask something along those lines of like external stresses, not just related to school. How do those play into your stress level? And then, Hannah, specifically, I just wanted to ask if you could share a little bit about what were the signs to you that you needed to make a change? And like, because you said you had this period where you're like, I have to like figure this out or slow down. Earlier in the call you said something about you needed to get control over kind of this runaway train. So what were the signs to you that you needed to make those changes?
I feel like I kind of just realized that one, I had breakdowns every night. It was like crying every night, and I was like, okay, you should not be crying every night. Crying's okay every once in a while. Crying every night, that's a lot. So I was like, okay, that shouldn't be happening. And then also I was like, I guess I kind of took a step back because we were talking about pressure, academic pressure. Um, and I was at that point, I started looking at colleges and I'm like, what GPA do I have to get in? And I was like, okay, you're putting way too much pressure on yourself with trying to get all A's. Like that was literally, I freaked out over a B plus. And I was like, okay, you need to calm down a little bit. And also the fact that I was just not talking to anyone at school. Like every single day I would come in and I would go to my classes. I didn't talk to anyone. At lunch, I have a group of friends that I sit with and I would put my earbuds in and I would listen to music and I wouldn't talk to them, which like wasn't me at all. I'm a very talkative person. You know that, Courtney. Abby, you know that. I do talk a lot when I start talking, so I knew that that was definitely not right. So I guess I kind of started to look at how I used to be and then looking at where I was now, and I could see that it definitely went downhill from where I had been previously.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I'm really impressed, Hannah, with your self-awareness, to be able to see those things in yourself and say, I don't know that this is this is normal, or I mean, it's normal, but I don't know that this is, you know, the healthiest place to be. And I just think it's pretty profound. And I'm very impressed that you had that self-awareness to be able to see those things, but also to be able to say, how do I reassess and make some of those changes for myself? But as I think or hear all of you say, I mean, kind of like, you know, just throwing out a number or of how often you were stressed. You know, Vincent maybe is at the lower side, and he still said, you know, sometimes 20%. And so we're talking the low end of having greater stress than we feel like we should in our life. The low end is a quarter of our life, pretty much, or you know. And so I think hear that, and I think, so what is the role of rest? Because I think maybe it was Abby who said this, or kind of talked about how you're a goer and a doer, and try to, like, you know, don't rest until you need to. But I remember times in my life where I wasn't knowing how to rest, and I wouldn't stop until I got to the point where I couldn't keep going. It would be that point where I just had no ability to think clearly or process or even accomplish things that were daily parts of my job. And it would be this overwhelming sense of, if I don't stop now, I can't do my job anyway, so I need to do something. And that's when I would take time to rest. And so obviously I've been better at that since I've had those experiences. But I just think about that level of stress, and understanding the importance of rest in the midst of that. And I guess I'm trying to figure out where this is taking me as far as a question. But do either of you, Vincent or Abby, you know, have kind of what Hannah talked about? Do you remember a time when you came into an understanding of why or how you need rest? When you need rest, are there signs that you can say, man, I think, or maybe you feel like you have such good rhythms, and I'd love to hear about that too, that rest is incorporated into it, that there's not these signs that you need more rest because it's so enveloped into your normal rhythm and routine of life. Or do you feel like you can remember times when you recognized, I need to slow down a little bit, I need to find ways to rest?
I think I'm like used to being in like not I don't really get stressed easily. Has been a lot of stuff like going on at one time, and I think I'm used to like multitasking when it comes to that. But there's definitely been times where I'd like just realize that like I am stressed, and I'm not good at realizing that. But I have to like think about it and like just kind of figure it out.
I think the only time I can think of, like, when I realized it was like during driver's training last year. But like I think then it's like I thought I needed rest, but like it was like I couldn't get rest because of like everything that I had to do, because like that was during freshman year, so I had a lot more like homework and stuff because I was taking like an AP class. And like it was like driver's training was like 2 hours after school every day, and I was just like, for me, like I know like Abby is probably used to something like that, but like I wasn't used to it at all. And like I had a bunch of homework to do, and like also the driver's training homework, and I also had to go on drives after school sometimes, and I just like couldn't wait for it to be over.
Vincent, I think you kind of touched on something that I think it's important for us to remember. You said like someone like Abby might be used to this and might be able to process, you know, the busyness in a different way, or all the activities. And Abby might really find a lot of joy in going for a run. That might be something that fills her up, where for me to go out and run, or maybe Vincent, for you to go to cross country practice, is like, I would rather do anything else than this. So I think there is that level too of what is stress and what is just busyness really is dependent on the individual and what that particular activity does to us on the inside. And I think that's what's hard, is because I could look at, you know, my friend's life and say like, I could never do all the stuff that they do. That would just wipe me totally out. And they're like, this is the stuff that brings me joy. This is why I feel like I feel so complete when I do all these things. I'm like, get me away from it. So I think that's an important thing that I think we're all kind of saying in a way, is like, our stress levels are different because we fill our lives with different things. But I think it's about mindfully and intentionally choosing those things that we bring into our life and the things that we give priority of our time and our mental energy. And I just think that's cool to hear all of you kind of articulate that in your own way.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's what's really beautiful about our ability, or our opportunity to interact with one another, is the very thing that may provide stress for me is the way that someone else rests. And it's that intentionality in finding time to do the things we need to do to recenter and to slow down. And I don't mean slow down as in physically stop, because like Abby said, or if I was to think about the ways that I'm resting best right now, I think going for runs is one of the most centering things I've been doing. And so it's not a slowing down necessarily physically. Maybe it is. Maybe the best form of rest someone has right now is to lay on their bed with their headphones in, and listen to music and not move for an hour, just actually stop. But it's the slowing down in our need, or the thought that we need to be doing something or producing something or being productive in order to feel valued or worthwhile. And it's the slowing down to remind ourselves that we are not just what we can accomplish in life, but as humans, our essence and our being is more than just do, and go, go, go. And so it is really cool to hear you three talk about that and articulate that. And I would be curious, I know this is pretty specific, and Vincent, you talked a little bit about playing the guitar or playing any instrument as something that's very restful for you. But I would love to hear, what are a couple of your favorite ways to rest right now, each of you? What are the things that you are doing right now? Because I also recognize that this changes. A year ago, I probably wouldn't have said the most restful thing I could be doing is going for a run. And so for you in this phase of your life, in this moment, what are the things that bring your body and mind and soul the most rest?
I think I would also say like going for runs, but not going for runs to like get better or have a good time. Just like going for runs and just not listening to music and just running and just kind of relaxing and thinking while I'm doing that. I'm not trying to get better, just doing it too.
Well, I think for me, it could also be like listening to music, because like sometimes, well, it's just listening to music that I listen to now, or just like listening to new music can be a way to rest for me. But also like every once in a while, I'll go back, like not like songs from like when I was like 5 or anything, but like just songs from like a few years ago, and like listen to them, and it's just like kind of takes me back a little and brings back memories. So
I feel like I've been trying to exercise and everything, and I know that trying to exercise and setting a time for that might sound like, oh, you're trying to be better at something, but I feel like it genuinely just kind of gives me time. I'm not thinking during that time at anything except exercising, and it kind of, I don't know. And then after that, I meditate and I do yoga, and because it just kind of helps me cool down from that. And meditation is great, which I just discovered. Honestly, loving it so much. It's just kind of time where I don't have to focus on anything else except myself in that moment. So I don't know. That's fun for me.
That's cool. That makes me think a little bit of, Tyler, when you were talking just a little bit ago about times when you have been like super busy, or what kept you going, or what were the signals for you to stop. And I was definitely a person up until into like the first year of being married. So until I was like 23, where I would stay busy until my body shut down and I got sick. And I would get sick, like cyclically, over the year.
Mhm.
And I would push and push and push. And I would say, well, I'm not sick yet, so I can just keep going. But then I realized that a lot of the things that I was doing and the pace that I was trying to keep were to keep me from thinking about painful things in my life or things that were really difficult for me to confront. And so I'm wondering, this might be a little personal, but if you'd be willing to share, is there any element of rest that's hard for you because it forces you to stop? And like Hannah, you just said meditation, it's just you in that present moment. Is that ever hard to face? And is that something that maybe keeps you addicted to the busyness or the schedule of all the things that you should accomplish?
I feel like it's definitely part of our worlds now that it's like if you don't have anything to show for what you did that day, like you didn't do anything. Like I'll have days where I'll lay in bed and I will kind of just like watch Netflix and stuff. But those are kind of days that we all need. We all need those days. But then it's like after the day's over, you kind of look and you're like, what did I do today? I did nothing. I'm lazy. And then you kind of beat yourself up over the fact that you just relaxed. You got your rest. You cleared your mind. And that was kind of thing that, like, even sometimes when I'm meditating, I'll let that little thought get in my head. Like, I could be doing something else right now instead of sitting here and meditating. Or like reading and stuff. It's like, why am I not working on homework? Why am I not working on these extra side projects that you've had forever? And it's kind of like feel pressure from not only yourself, but other people around you because you see other people that are always, I did this today, blah, blah. Like, it kind of makes you feel like, wow, I did nothing. Like, why am I not doing what they're doing?
Mm-hmm. So are you kind of saying that accomplishment feeds your self-esteem, and that if you aren't constantly doing something or you don't have anything to show for that day, it impacts the way you view yourself in a negative way? Yeah, I relate to that.
I don't really get that like that often, but like recently I've kind of gotten it because my neighbor has like she has all the same classes as me and stuff, and she gets everything done on like Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, and then I'm there at the end of the week on like Sunday when everything is due, getting everything done. So it's kind of I kind of get that, but at like the same time, it's just like I don't really care. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't want to make it a gendered thing, but I think there is something to um, women, and as girls are raised, the comparison of myself to other people is something that I think is really ingrained in us, to be always looking out at what everyone else is doing and saying, like, how do I measure up? And I know that men deal with that as well, but I think I just can think back in my life being raised as a girl. That was something that I was always aware of. Like, my friend, got 100% on this test and I got a 95, and I'm livid and I'm mad at myself. And it's like, you both got an A, it doesn't really matter. But I feel like we're just kind of trained to compete and to compare. And I
Mhm.
think that might make us feel more prone to be stressed out by not doing enough.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
wonder. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I feel like Courtney, with what you were saying, kind of like not really to make it gender based, but like my mom was a very hardworking person, and it kind of she was like, I can do this. I'm a woman. Men can do this too. So don't ever think that you can't do anything. So when I can't actually do something, I'm like, well, I can do it. I just have to work harder. And then I keep pushing myself more and more until it kind of breaks. There's a breaking point there because you're like, well, I have to be strong because women are allowed to be strong now. And it's like a thing that I'm like pushing myself more because I'm like, well, I have to be that strong person.
I remember hearing something that 20 years ago, the comparison game was you're really comparing yourself to maybe your neighbors and the people who lived, your closest friends and the people who lived by you. But now with access to the internet, you literally have the opportunity to compare yourself to millions of people in a matter of minutes, and so that heightened sense of comparison, and kind of maybe going off of what you said, Courtney. I think the comparison component for men may not really be the comparison, although I know I do and most guys do comparison, but I think that there's this sense of not wanting to, this cultural sense of not wanting to demonstrate weakness, and so rather than comparing myself, there's this notion that I can't show my failure or my struggle, because it's a sign of weakness, or I don't want to appear weak, and so it's a little bit different, but I think it's pretty prevalent, a pretty prevalent message that even from early age, boys hear and kind of internalize as don't show weakness, don't show weakness, don't show weakness, where girls are maybe shown to compare themselves to, and so I think that's what you kind of pointed at is incredibly insightful, and kind of getting back a few questions ago, Courtney, to where you talked about, in our rest, do we avoid it because there could be pain? And I know for me, those times when everything seems to stop, maybe are the times I've experienced the most growth in my life. But almost every time that I've experienced that growth, it's a painful experience, because I'm forced to reconcile things about myself that were easier for me just to be busy and not have to deal with, or not have to consider or work on. And I think we all have this desire to grow as people, but I think that the painful experience that can be keeps us from really being able to settle into that nothingness and that rest, that quietness, because it is painful, and maybe for me it's because that sometimes that painful experience can look like weakness.
Oh, one thing that I've seen, like in myself and other people, is like people get stressed from like what other people like think about them. Like they'll walk out in public and they'll like feel like people are like judging them on like what they wear or like stuff like that. Like people get stressed. Like I used to get stressed from that, but I'm like, it's hard to do, but I'm working on like just not caring what other people think about me, which is like really hard to do, but it could like be like really beneficial.
I feel like kind of with the like once again kind of bringing it back to Courtney's earlier question about like is there the darkness behind the rest, like talking about how I like made this future career change or whatever. While I was happy that I realized I didn't want to do that and I realized what I actually want to do and feel like I realized what I was calling to do, I also was kind of I was crying to myself because I was like, you had this all planned out. Like your life was planned, you had it, like you knew your classes for the rest of high school, like everything was set, and now everything's just like, whoa, what am I gonna do now? So there's kind of that sense of security in that, but also like freaking out because you thought you were restful in what you already had, and then you find out what rest actually is, and it's kind of like, well, my whole thing just got blown up.
I relate to that. I think experiencing true rest often correlates for me with feeling freedom from maybe my plans or this image that I've tried to keep up of myself. And it feels like your whole world sometimes can be just totally exposed and blown up. And like you almost get this clarity, you see things for what they really are. And I think it's really hard to get to that point if we're just consistently going. And maybe that's why sometimes we just consistently go, so we can keep up this image of what our life is about and what we're doing, and maybe not have to confront some of those things, like you said, Hannah.
That's good. That's good. Courtney, I wonder if you have any last questions or just reflections on this conversation before we wrap it up. And
Yeah. Not really. I mean, I think they're the same every week. I'm just always so thankful for all that you have shared and that you took the time to be with us, because, and I really believe this, I think, we're just 5 people in this conversation, and the ways that we're processing things and the way that we experience life is so vastly different. But I really think that conversation and bringing people together to talk through these things is so growing and can be so changing, not just for us as individuals, but I think, this is really what we need more of in our society and in our world, is more people who bring their different experiences together and have empathy and can say, like, I don't really experience that, but like, I'm so thankful to know that that's how you see the world. And so I'm just thankful for the way that, you all showed up today and were honest and open and were able to share with us. So I just want to say thank you, because I feel like I learn a lot every week. And today I learned a lot again. So thank you.
No, for sure. I think just what Courtney said, I don't want anyone to understate how incredible it is that you are willing to come and share your experiences, and just the vulnerability and openness to be a part of a conversation that's, again, a small conversation, but an incredibly important conversation. And so to you, Abby, Hannah, and Vincent, just want to say thank you for being a part of this, for offering your thoughts and experiences, because just like Courtney said, that's what we need more of, is people coming together, not with this is where we want to go or this is where we want this conversation to end, but just this is who I am, this is my journey, and just bringing those together. So thanks for your participation in this. We're excited next week. If you're watching this still, I know this is a long one, but it's been good. If you're still watching this, next week we're going to start a new one that may end up kind of being a couple weeks series, and so I'm excited for that. But what we really need is, if you're watching this and you haven't already, we launched an Instagram and a Twitter account specifically for Coffee and Convos, not because we think the world needs another social media account, but because we want to get your input on some of these discussions with some feedback, sometimes some topic ideas, but specifically for next week, we want your reflections or your answers. And so if you haven't found, it's _coffee and convos. That's all spelled out for both Twitter and Instagram. But we would love your input for this next week. So if you could head over to those pages and just help us as we kind of prepare for next week's conversation, we'd really appreciate it. And again, thanks for being a part of this conversation. Cheers.